right, everyone. This is Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams with the Digital Desk Update. So as we take a look at what was happening this morning, we are following the tropics very closely because there's been a development. The area of disturbed weather that we've been watching, known as Invest 97L, is now being called Potential Tropical Cyclone 4. And so now that they are calling it that, it allows for a forecast cone to be issued. It allows for watches, warnings, and advisories to be issued. And the latest information is right here. So let's take you right to it. We can see this is a look at the stats with that particular disturbance. It has maximum winds of 30 miles per hour. It's moving to the west and northwest at 16 miles per hour. And the coordinates you can see there, 20.9 north, 76.6 west, and the minimum pressure, not that strong at all, 10-12 millibars. We'll be with this update, by the way, until about 10:25 a.m. And then around 10:25 a.m. we'll wrap things up. So thanks for sticking with us for the next 15 minutes or so. Now here we'll take you through the forecast track and show you area by area how things are going to be affected. So where's the system right now? The disturbance right now is located over portions of Cuba, and there's no well-defined center of circulation yet. You can see the center of the system, or apparent center of the system, based on what the National Hurricane Center is observing, appears to be right there over eastern Cuba. And as it moves toward the northwest, it's still going to be too close to the island to really develop much in the short term, because the island of Cuba, as well as the island next door, Hispaniola, both of those islands, Hispaniola and Cuba, they both have very tall mountains. And those mountains work, as they poke up in the sky, to disrupt wind circulations, especially from developing tropical systems that technically don't even have a well-defined circulation yet. So that's why not much development is expected, and by tomorrow morning it could only be a depression, if that. You see Saturday morning max winds of 35 miles per hour located somewhere in the vicinity of the Florida Keys or near, or just to the south of the Florida Keys near Cuba. Now let's go up again, and we see the next forecast point right there. Sunday morning, 24 hours later, the storm has some uncertainty with whether it will be over water or over land. That's what this cone of uncertainty is there to help illustrate. You can see that there are a range of possibilities on Sunday morning. Will we have a system that's out here in this part of the cone where the center is over the waters of the Gulf? That is what the current expectation is. If that is the case, then it could actually get stronger and become a tropical storm. At that point, by Sunday, taking that name Debbie. But there is still an option on the table where maybe this area doesn't take that left side of the cone and instead is more so on the right side of the cone of uncertainty. If something like that were to happen, as you know, tropical systems, in order to develop, they need to be over warm water. And if it's over land, it might not develop and become as strong. Maybe it might just stay a depression if it's already over land. So that's going to be a really tricky part of the forecast as we go into parts of the weekend. Will the center be over water or will it be over land? Because you still have both of those options on the table based on this particular cone of uncertainty. Now, we go down the line and we get to Monday, and you're noticing this right bend to the forecast track. So that's what we're watching as we take a look at the forecast track from Sunday to Monday. Things are curving right to the right, not to the left, but to the right. The reason why that is, there's an upper trough that's over the U.S. east half of the, let's say it a different way, it's over the U.S. Atlantic coastline. And that upper trough is going to work to help to steer this disturbance a little bit more to the north and the east. Now, the movement is going to slow down a lot once we go from Sunday to Monday, because it is possible that this system is going to get left behind by that upper trough, and it will lose that steering that's helping to pull it to the north and east. So that's why you see from Monday to Tuesday, there's almost no movement at all. On Monday morning, located near the southeast tip of Georgia, and on Tuesday morning, located not too far from southeastern portions of South Carolina. So if we do a distance measuring with that particular setup, that's moving less than 150 miles, fewer than 150 miles in 24 hours. So it's basically going to stall and move erratically, possibly as we go to early next week. But it does appear that if it has enough forward momentum, maybe it doesn't turn around or anything like that. It might just slowly continue to move toward the north and the east. And you see, if it gets back out over water, that's what is being described as maybe it gets a bit more intense again and becomes an even stronger tropical storm by the time we get to early next week. So that's a look at the latest forecast cone. We can kind of show you that with the watches and alerts overlaid beneath that here. And you can see that parts of the Florida Keys are under that tropical storm watch, and areas in southwestern Florida are under a tropical storm warning. So as you can see, those are some of those areas that are under the potential for wind hazards from this particular tropical system. And we have actually a graphic that I want to pop up that focuses on those winds. I'll have to build in that, make sure that forecast, yeah, this is still set for Beryl, so bear with me while I reset this from Beryl to 4, and then reset my camera to 4. And we're getting there. 4, all right, zoom out. Okay, so for some reason this 4 is not showing its forecast track. Oh, there, you know, it's interesting, it's not showing the forecast track. I guess I have to push it through time. Now it's going to show it. So now we've got the 4 forecast, and we should be able to lock our camera onto that. Bear with me one moment. There, now we've locked the camera on. So now what we can do is follow along with our computer modeling winds as well as the NHC forecast track to give you an idea of some of those wind hazards, especially that might be impacting portions of Florida. As we go through today and tonight, our modeling showing not really seeing any kind of well-defined or closed center of circulation because, like I said, I think it has to get away from those islands first. Once it gets away from the island of Cuba, then I think it will be able to close that circulation off a bit better. And that might not happen until tomorrow. Today's Friday, tomorrow's Saturday. And we get through Saturday, and now we're seeing, okay, now those winds are wrapping completely around counterclockwise circulation there. And at that point, maybe that's the trigger to get it to become a depression, if not a storm. Now, in order to be a storm, it has to have winds of greater than 39 miles per hour. And this map is showing mostly green colors. You'll notice the scale up there at the top to get to 40, usually yellow colors. So might not have that storm strength yet, even though it could be a depression. But we go through time and notice that those are some of the spots you're beginning to see in the coast of Florida where there are some yellow and even orange colors. I'll zoom in a little bit and we'll take off the plot so that we can get all of the places labeled possibly. Let's see here. We'll throw on some labels for you so that we can get some of these places labeled in there. All right, so let's generate them all. So we got Naples, Fort Myers, Sarasota. Those are areas that could be under that threat of seeing those tropical storm force winds at some point this weekend, perhaps Saturday night into early Sunday, with that forecast track taking the system very close to the western coast, the Gulf Coast of Florida. This continues to go up to the north. We'll redo the labels there. Continues to go up to the north and makes that rightward bend. If that's the case, if we actually can get this system off the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, then that would significantly decrease the risk of some kind of intensifying storm. And we'd basically just be left with a depression strength system over portions of Florida by that point in time. So that's a look at the wind hazards as far as the wind hazards are concerned. That's why those portions of Florida are underneath watches and warnings because of wind. That's what a tropical storm warning is for. It's to warn you that the winds could go over 40 miles an hour from a tropical storm. The watch tells you the winds could possibly go over 40 miles an hour, and you have a lower confidence in the watch area. So the Keys might not get that, but the warning area, that's where you're much more confident that you will see those types of winds. And so places closer to Naples, not too far from Key Largo, that will be where that warning is located there. Times on Saturday into Sunday, those strong winds. So that's the wind threat. You'll notice that that has absolutely nothing to do with our Mississippi coast. We can even show you the rest of the wind threat. Let me grab one more graphic for you that shows the wind probability. Here we go. So again, I'll go into this. It should be set for 4. So there we go. So this shows you the probabilities of where the wind hazards will be located. And you'll note that the Mississippi coast has 0 chance of any type of wind from this. The wind hazards are expected to be east of our Mississippi coast. And we are off on the west side where there's not really any wind hazard. But one other hazard, rain, that we haven't talked about yet, and I want to get to that right here, because there are some showers and tropical downpours, frankly, that will occur with this regardless of development. You see, in order to get a wind hazard, you actually have to get something to become a storm. But you don't need a storm to get a rain hazard. We've seen some of the worst rainstorms in history from things that didn't have a name. You remember the thing that happened in Louisiana, I believe back in 2016, perhaps near Baton Rouge. There have also been a number of other times when they've had a significant rain event from a tropical thing that didn't have a name. So even if this never becomes Debbie, still going to be a prolific rain threat for Florida. I don't think that the Mississippi coast has too much to be concerned with for rain, because we're going to be on the western side, and I think it'll be the drier side. But let's take a look. This is the computer model for Saturday, seeing that rain show up in bands over the Florida peninsula. And then we take a look at Sunday, seeing those rain bands also still showing up over the Florida peninsula. Meanwhile, on the Mississippi coast, things are much drier. I mean, you can look and see where most of the rain is situated, not where we are on the Mississippi coast, but instead near and especially east of that system's circulation. So let's take you to the rain maps, because we got to discuss what's happening with our weather. So today, we're not really looking at a lot of rain on Friday, but tomorrow, Saturday, we actually could see some wet weather, and it has nothing to do with the tropics. It's a cool front that will be moving in from the north and west. This leads to a wetter pattern for us tomorrow. So if you have some plans in South Mississippi on Saturday, plan to bring your rain jacket, plan to have an umbrella nearby. There could be a few hit or miss thunderstorms tomorrow because a cool front is approaching our area from the north. But this is not October. This is not November. That front is not going to slide all the way down offshore and bring us some cold blast of dry air. This is August. So that front is going to pump the brakes and stall along our coastline. Meanwhile, tomorrow, there you can see where the worst rain threat will target, that bullseye right over portions of southern Florida, not too far from the Keys. Now, take a look at the next day, Sunday. We have that stalled front nearby, but we are on the western and drier side of things. So South Mississippi, not really next to that tropical system. We're west of it. So doesn't look like a lot of rain for us on Sunday, but the bullseye of rain, where is it at? East of us, over Florida and other areas not too far from that, near parts of Georgia, parts of South Carolina. Even go beyond that to next Monday, Tuesday, and you can see that the tropical rains are primarily east of us. And this is what we've been talking about this morning on Good Morning Mississippi, how that the rain hazards, regardless of development, are primarily going to be east of us. Typically, when you have a landfalling tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico, locations that are east get the worst. There's actually a little colloquial phrase I think you might have heard our anchor Bill Snyder mentioning it. East is beast and west is best. And that's something that you'll hear locals say sometimes in regards to this sort of setup where some of the worst weather with the hurricane or a system is on its east side, and some of the lighter, not as heavy weather is on the west side. And that's kind of where we're going to be, because you can see all of that bullseye of worst rain right on top of Florida, and meanwhile over in Mississippi, kind of on the drier side of things. So that's why our forecast into the next 7 days does not really show much in the way of rain. In fact, sometimes think back to 2018 when major Hurricane Michael made a Florida Panhandle landfall near Panama City, and we just had sun on the Mississippi coast because the circulation around that system helped to draw down dry air from the north for us, and it was actually just hot and dry. And I think that is a possibility as we go to the next 7 days. A heat wave for us. If the tropics stay east of us, we would likely be on the hot and dry side along the Mississippi coast. So that's basically what we're watching as far as your digital desk update going into this Friday, August 2nd. Of course, we know hurricane season will continue going strong through the peak. We're near the peak. The peak of hurricane season is in September, and we're in August. This is the time of year when you see that biggest increase in activity. So don't be surprised if later this month we are tracking even more systems out in the tropics. But the good news for your Friday today is that it still looks like the Mississippi coast could not be in the crosshairs, the bullseye, as far as impacts. And today it still looks like Florida would be facing the brunt of those threats. Well, that'll do it for our digital desk update. And I hope that, of course, you stay safe this hurricane season. That's a look at, again, that hurricane season there, showing that the worst part of the season is on September. So take care, everybody.